This is Nicole Calvig, and this is my final project for EDT6040. I entitled it Enhancing Google Sites. I teach music, and the class that I was working with is a 7th grade music appreciation class. This group meets every day for approximately 53 minutes for a 9-week quarter. And students are one-to-one MacBooks. And there are 10 girls and 15 boys, and 5 students have IEPs. The project that students will be working on is creating a website to showcase a rock artist. So the first thing they do is choose a rock artist from the decades of 1950 to 1980. And I give them a very long list of artists that they can choose from. However, they can pick one that is not on the list as well. They will then research their rock artist and answer a questionnaire and gather a bunch of material. And then they will show their research by creating a website using Google Sites. This allows for them to add photos and video and audio and really enhance their research. And then they will finally end by presenting their website to the class. Some of the technology tools that I used were MacBooks. The students each have a MacBook, so they were able to do their research and create their website. I used Screencast-O-Matic to record my screen while I was creating Google Site tutorials to help my students. Students used Google Sites to create their websites of their rock artists. I used a site called Quick Rubric to create a rubric to grade each student's website. And finally, I used Google Forms to create a student survey asking students how they felt the tutorials helped them with creating their Google Sites. So when I first started teaching this class, the teacher previous, this is my first year teaching it, the teacher previous created this rock artist research project, but students presented a written research paper. And I felt that I really liked that students had the opportunity to research an artist, but I thought there could be a more meaningful way of presenting the material and that students would remember the material a little bit more. So I decided to have students continue to research a rock artist using the original guided questions, but now they present their material on a Google site and create a website. With that, they can add images and photos and videos of their rock artists to enhance their research. Originally, when I started teaching this during the first quarter of the year, I projected Google Sites onto the screen for students to visually see, and I verbally and visually demonstrated how to use different features of Google Sites, like adding text, moving text, adding images and videos, changing color and headings. Problem was, it was only viewable once, and I frequently had students coming up asking me, how do I find this? I don't remember how to do that. I had also included paper step-by-step tutorials like you see to the right, but even the students who utilized those still struggle to figure out where and figure out all the features that were available to them using Google Sites. So now I'm in second quarter. And I wanted to improve upon this because what I found was that their websites were lacking creativity or design or good layout, and I wanted to help fix that. It was like, since they didn't know how to find things, they just basically, put the information on a page. And I can show you what I mean by that. So this was a student from first quarter. You can see they put the title, they did something a little bit in the background, but then they put all their information and they really didn't know where to go from there. So my hope was to enhance that and help students figure out how to use the features. So the new literacy I used was Google Site I call it Google Site Tutorials, and I use Screencast-O-Matic to record my screen while walking through the different features of Google Sites. The great thing about these tutorials is now students can fast forward, so they can find the information that they weren't understanding. They can rewind, so maybe they listened to it once but wasn't quite sure where they were supposed to go. They can rewind and watch it again, and they can pause it at any time. So they can pause, do it on their own screen, press play, start over again, or continue. It really is nice because they can view only the information that they actually need. So if they're really good at adding images and they don't need that, they can skip ahead to adding videos. And the old literacy, they could only use once. They saw it once and that was it. And now this time they can use it multiple times. It's also excellent because I was able to add some visual cues. And visual cues really help students to capture their attention and refocus their attention on the relevant items on the screen. And it reduces their search time, so they don't have to search all over to figure out where they're supposed to go. The visual cues can guide them. And it also helps them to learn it more quickly and also retain it more quickly. So those visual cues are important. Some of the cues that I used was in the video was the cursor. Screencast-O-Matic automatically uses a yellow circle around the cursor so students can see that sudden movement around the screen and follow it. I also moved images, and you could flash things, add arrows. I also have my voice speaking, and you can see my image in the bottom corner, so I'm giving vocal cues, and I'll click on that so you can kind of see what that looks like.
In this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to insert an image and also upload an image or upload a YouTube video. So to start with image,
so as you can see, that cursor has that circle around it, and it makes it really easy for students to follow. And I can use that movement of the cursor to guide students on the screen.
And you can search several different ways.
Oops, sorry. The other new literacy is instead of a written paper, they'll now be presenting a Google site and creating a website. This helps students with 21st century skills, which I think are really important as we move in the future. Everything is going digital, everything is being visual. So they have that opportunity to add photos and audio, video, color, headers, and they have an opportunity to think about the layout. What's the best way to put the text on the page or the video on the page? How can I add color to make it visually appealing? So working on some of those design skills. And I assessed my students with a Google form. And so it's a student survey, which I created, and it asks them questions like, while creating your website, did you utilize the Google Site tutorial videos? That's really helpful. Not all students necessarily need the videos. They might know it. But if the majority of students use the sites and I see an improvement in the way the design and the layout of the sites, I can assume that the tutorials were helpful to the students based on my first quarter websites which they produced. I can also, it says, if you did not use the tutorial videos, please explain why not. So maybe they can explain to me that, well, I've used it before, I didn't need to use that. Ask them how helpful the videos were. Were the videos easy to follow? Were you able to locate items quickly? And then it kind of talks about each of the different videos that I created. For instance, after watching the video about working with text boxes, were you able to do the following, and ask them to check all that apply. So that'll help to determine if the tutorials were successful in helping students. And another way I'll assess students is by using a website rubric, and I made this with Quick Rubric. But there is a section that talks about the design of the Rockstar page. And so I can I use this first quarter to grade students, so if I see that scores are higher this time around, I can also determine that those tutorials were helping students. So my second quarter students are not finished with their websites yet. Not all students, they're getting pretty close. But I have some early evidence of success. So I had shown you previously the first quarter student webpage. So like here was first quarter, and each kid did a different one, so you can kind of see some of the difference. As you can see, it's mostly just text. They had some images. There's not really much to it. Or they added text and then it was like all the images at the bottom. Second quarter, here's already one of my students, and you can see the improvement where they have nice headers, they have nice backgrounds, they've got these kind of blocks in between. They chunk it up so it's not all just text. You have some text with some images. They're now starting to learn how to add basically subheadings to their pictures. As you can see, it's much more visually appealing and holds the attention of their audience. So from those examples, I will then also listen to the Google Forms and see how students think those helped. And that is the end. Feel free to click on any of the images and it'll take you to the web pages.